that was easy. Boomer. Welcome back to another Lord Duckman production. We're back with my heavily modified Coleman KT-196 go-kart. And after the last crash repairs, we went back to David Ranchero 302 Me's house for a little one-on-one go-kart competition. But we didn't get but a few laps and about 10 minutes of timing, and well, he crashed into me so much he broke my exhaust. He said it didn't happen, but I felt the impact, and there was a half-moon dent cut into his crash padding at exactly the same height as my pipe. So, man, he's so good at crashing. And probably should rather be in a demolition derby rather than a friendly competition. But we're going to fix that exhaust today, and while we're at it, we're going to advance the timing on that engine by 7 degrees for a little more pep and quicker throttle response. Then we shall return back to David's for another few laps, but not until we have a moment to talk about our sponsor, the HIPPA store. HIPPA has been there to support us through the resurrection of both of these go-karts, providing the small engine parts necessary to get the job done. Oh, no kidding. They also have parts for lawnmowers and other outdoor power equipment. Every homeowner has a mower, and someday yours will break. What will you do? You'll visit the HIPPA store, of course, and source the parts you need to get things right once again. I'm very thankful, though. If it wasn't for HIPPA, we wouldn't have quite so much go-kart content recently. So please check out the HIPPA store and use the links down below in the video description, because when you support HIPPA, you're also supporting my YouTube channel. Thanks again to HIPPA for sponsoring this video. And thanks to everyone watching. Please don't forget to licky, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you right after that intro. Well, for the first time ever, David and I got our two go-karts together, and, well, he crashed into me and knocked my exhaust pipe off. He claims he didn't, but he did put some pool noodles down around the front of the cart to protect himself from getting banged up, and there was a half-moon shape kind of pressed into it where he hit my exhaust pipe, and it was on the left-hand side. So, yeah, he bumped into the pipe, and he kind of ripped it off. So, it actually tore. So, I need to weld all that back together. Probably not going to be as strong as it once was. Maybe even just hollow it out and shorten it up a little bit. And of course, here I are, talking again, and the damn roosters are going to be screaming, but that's just the way it goes. Anyway, I'll screw this thing back in because I did make a support for it, and then we'll get the sucker welded back together. I'll probably clean up this entirely and just redo it because, yeah, it's ugly. It's all jagged. All right, well, here we go.
15 minutes later.
All right, we've got that all fixed. Notice how it's a little bulge as I welded all the way around it. I didn't want to grind too much of it down to weaken it. So anyway, that can go back on now. All right, here we go. Hope all my screw holes still line up. All right, there it is. Reinstalled again. Looks like the paint's doing a pretty good number of burning itself off there, but the pipe is turning mighty blue. What that says to me is I need a bigger jet on here. Somebody told me I needed a 120 at sea level. Some people said 125. And seeing as how I am actually at sea level here in Florida, I probably should go a little bigger than that. So I'm gonna throw a 130 in there. We'll just see what kind of performance we get out of it. Can only help it to run a little cooler too, especially since we're about to advance timing, and that makes more heat. This is a 7-degree advanced, well, or retarded Woodruff key. And it has a small offset on it. And what this is going to do to my engine here is it's going to advance the timing slightly by 7 degrees, which should give it a peppier throttle response and maybe even a little bit more power across the range, but it'll come as a consequence of a little more heat, and that's typical of any vehicle that you would advance the ignition timing of, same as on the Volkswagen Beetles. And sometimes if you give them just that little bit of extra, you'll get a little bit of extra from it, but again, at the consequence of a little bit of heat. So we're going to install this sucker today in this little dime bag here. There it is. That's what it looks like. It's not perfectly flat. It does have a slight offset on it. These things used to be cheap. They're not anymore. But we're going to install this sucker today, and I'll demonstrate how it goes in. It's quite easy. Not much to these things. All right, we got a bunch of 8mm bolts the whole way around the shroud. I think there's actually about 4. Might be 5. Got one more way over here. Ooh, this is a little tricky to get to. Glad I bought an extension. Alright, There they are. And the shroud should just pull right off of here. There it is. Recoil starter and everything all comes off as one piece. Alright, next is the flange that the starter catches on. Inside of here should be a 19mm nut. And hopefully it'll come off. Actually, that wasn't too bad at all. I don't know if that was even as tight as it was supposed to be. Pull off the flange. Fan should come off. Underneath here is our flywheel. These can be a little tricky. Sometimes you gotta get behind them. Oh, I'm on the magnet side. Turn it over. Don't want to pry against that magnet because you will crack it. You just kind of get up behind the flywheel here. You take your nut, screw it on here. You could use a wheel puller on this too, but this seems to be one of the easier methods that you could do. Oh, that was easy. Just bop it just right. And providing it's not stuck on there for any reason, it should come right off. There it is, David. You probably noticed it looks an awful lot like them trolley wheels that you have. Alright, put that out of the way. And then on here, oh, it's facing upright actually, is our Woodruff key. These can be a little tricky to remove, especially if there's any rust on it. This one actually looks pretty clean. Sometimes you can just lift them out with your finger. Sometimes you can get under them with a screwdriver. Sometimes you just tap the end of them like this and they'll slide themselves up. Because they're kind of a half moon shape, they'll just ride up and out of the shaft just like that. There it is. There's our Woodruff key. And here's our offset key. And you can see the difference in them. This one has kind of a line on it. And the reason for the line is because, well, it's offset a little bit. It's not straight. Now this engine turns, I think we might be out of focus, we're good. The engine turns clockwise on this side. In order to advance the ignition, we'll have to make the little leaning side of this lean to the right. It's gotta go that way. And then once it's in the shaft just like that, our flywheel goes back on. Alright, flywheel goes on. Sometimes good to put a little grease on these. I'm not going to this time around. Make sure that it goes on straight. Looks like it did. Make sure you don't have any rubbing over here on your coil. If it's been spaced properly, you probably won't have a problem with it again. And yeah, I did put the nut on there just now, but this is just to tighten it down to make sure that it does tighten down like it's supposed to. Yeah, everything looks good. Okay, take this back off. Our flywheel is currently pressed in place still, so it's not going to come off of there very easily. Gotta put our fan on, and you have to observe the direction in which it goes on. There's like a kidney shape in here. Probably a lousy description for the shape, but that's what BMW calls it. You should press into the flywheel and get the little divots lined up. Well, should being operative word. Something like this is going to be what screws me up, really. There it goes. And it's out again. Alright, it's in. Put our flange on. It's also keyed. There's a bump on it. Put it in the proper location. On goes our nut. And tighten. Now we'll come back and hit that with a torque wrench. Make sure that it's as tight as it's supposed to be. Once again, checking the coil over here. Making sure that it's not grinding on that flywheel. I think we're good. Okay. I've got a screwdriver through the recoil flange, and I got my torque wrench calibrated to 56 foot-pounds. There it is. That's the easiest way to do it without mangling things. All right, good. Let's put our cover back on. This guy right here. We'll run our bolts back in, and there's a little wire right here. I don't know if they're all like this, but make sure that you catch that wire. That way the bolt goes through it, because that appears to ground out that coil. which is kind of important. Otherwise, it won't make a spark. All right, use our tool like a nut driver here. Make sure that we catch that wire. There we go. One's underneath. And this job is pretty simple. The hardest thing for anybody would probably be removing that flywheel. And sometimes they're pressed on there pretty good. And actually, I gotta say, I got lucky today. That thing came off of there real easy. Would I lightly tap it with a hammer once? No, it was twice. It was twice, but still. All right. There we go. And then come back and just snug them up. These don't have to be tight. There probably is a torque spec on them, but I don't over tighten these because you don't want to strip them. And you don't want to make them too loose that they fall out. There we go. And the last one, which is a really hard to reach one, is down over here. There we go. All right. Let's see if she starts. All right, it's a cold day today. About 48 degrees out here this morning. Yesterday it was almost 80 and the humidity was way up. It was absolutely disgusting. Our choke on, fuel is on, run switch is on. This thing is always a little tricky to start, especially when it's cold. Sometimes I gotta throttle it just a little bit, so we'll see what happens. It may fire, I don't know. Yeah, it's trying. Turn that choke back off, that might have been enough. There it is. Yeah, so it's actually idling a little higher than it usually would be, which, as you know, on Volkswagens, if you advance the timing, that's typical. The idle speed will pick up. So that's why it started so easy, because it had just a little throttle on. What I can do at this point is I can actually reduce the idle speed, or maybe even mixture screw at low speed just a little bit. But it sounds good. But it's definitely faster than it was. Lower that idle speed just a little bit. Wow, okay. It's much more jumpy, twitchy than it used to be on the throttle there, so. We'll leave the idle screw right about there. Come under here. We're going to replace the jet in the carburetor. I got my new jet over here. And hopefully I can do this whole job from underneath using just a Phillips and flathead screwdrivers. Boy, this is fussy. One more. I did switch off the fuel and run the carburetor dry. All right. There's our jet. And here, hopefully the screwdriver will get it. It did. Fantastic. I believe this was a 120. Just verifying. This light, it's hard to tell. And Boomer's back again. Yeah, it's 120. The biggest one I had was a 125. I was hoping for a 130. 125 is all I got. Okay, that one goes in. Snug that up. First, look at this. Ah! Damn it, I guess there was still some fuel left in there. It's all over me now. Great, so now I'm gonna smell like I work for a gas station. Okay. Son of a bitch. Yeah, I might have been better off taking off this carburetor. This is frustrating. Could have just been 2 more screws. I could have taken it off. I could have done this from an upright position, which would have made a lot more sense. I wouldn't have spilled anything. Maybe when I ran that carburetor dry, yeah, I probably should have opened a little tap on the bottom of it and let the fuel out of it. But I didn't. Alright, that should get it. Now after this, I'm going to downgrade the front sprocket to an 8. Started out with a 10. I ran a 9 before. I want to do an 8. See how much difference it is as far as acceleration, performance, and torque is concerned. And of course, see if we lose any top speed. I got a feeling we're probably going to be pretty close to top speed, which means I'm going to keep it in a torquey setting. Alright, well there it is. Turn that fuel back on up here. And it should be ready to start. Here's my old jet. Here's the 10-tooth sprocket that I took off. This is the one that had the keyway sheared off in it. This sprocket is actually still good. So I can replace the key in there and put this thing back on if I wanted to. This is the 9-tooth that I installed on there later. This one has an integrated key, and this is the one I hit my speed record with. Despite being geared down for more torque, it actually pushed me faster at 36 miles an hour. Now when I upgraded the engine and everything else, that's as fast as it went, 36. Now if I go back to the 10, because now the engine's got more power, it might push me a little faster, and I will guess that it could go as fast as 40. That's where I'm at as far as that. But here is an 8. This one will give me even more torque than the 9 and way more than the 10. So this is something I'm considering installing today. And while I've got everything apart, you know what? I might just do it because I'm curious just how much more balls to the wall guts it's going to add. Because I'm not so concerned about top speed anymore. I want to push this thing quickly. I want to do donuts. I want to drift this thing. And I think with a little more torque, it'll probably do that. I have not seen a 7-tooth. For those of you that want to prove me wrong when I say it doesn't exist, find me a 7-tooth, you guys. Get on the internet, find me a 7-tooth. This is a 420 chain, and it's a 5/8 inch shaft. So if you guys can find me a 7-tooth, I'll give it a shot. But I don't know if they actually come that small. Who knows? They probably don't. Everything's set. Let's start. Good to go. Exhaust sounds good, ready to rock and roll. Alright, this time we're sprocketed with a 8-tooth sprocket up front. That means we should have 20% more torque than it was when it was stock, plus all the engine mods that I put into it, so it should go pretty good. Let's see what happens. Alright, well I got that battery charged just in time to be able to wrap up this video before it gets dark. But yeah, according to my phone, when I checked it before it went dead, it managed to hit a speed of 36 miles an hour, even though I've geared it down. So I think maybe that a jet going from 120 to 125 was enough to give it that little extra push to push it up. I wish I had a 130. I guess I'll go ahead and invest in a new set of jets for this to try a 130, 135, hell, maybe even a 140. I don't know how big we can push it before it starts to run too rich. But we're going to give it a shot on here, and we're going to see what happens. But so far, so good. Man, this thing is running really good. And while I didn't get it on video, when I turned into my driveway down at the end as I was rocketing down the street, I got it up on 2 wheels, and I kind of kept it up on 2 wheels, which was quite a surprise. So I'm going to be experimenting with that in the future, because if I can put this thing up on 2 wheels and keep it there, that's going to be even more fun. That adds an entirely new dimension to this thing. And I'm just the kind of guy to do it. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching once again. Special thanks again to our sponsor, the HIPAA Store. Check out the links down below in the video description, because if you support them, you're also supporting me. And I guess that's about it for today. So licky, likey, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to pluck that dingle belly so you get updates every time I upload a video. Check out DuckShit.net for all my different social media links. Also, check out Ranchero 302 Me's channel. He's going to be doing a lot more go-kart stuff, and shortly I'll be replacing one of the ball joints on his too, because he had one pull apart just like I did over here also. But anyway, we'll be taking care of that in the future, and meanwhile, I'm taking this thing back to him, and we're going to have some more fun, and we'll see just what breaks next. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Here comes Boomer again. Oh, wait, Boomer. Go away. Say hi to everybody on camera. Say hi to everybody. Okay, now go away. Fuck off. Alright, and of course, while I'm under here, I got Boomer humping me. Boomer! Can't you see that your daddy's busy? When I'm on the ground on my back, I'm vulnerable, and he knows that. And he'll take advantage of it when I'm under a car or something. Boomer! What are you doing to me? I'm your daddy. I'm not a girl. What are you humping me for? This reverse bestiality shit. Why are you bothering me, huh? I love you, but you can't be here. Hey, fuck off. Seriously?